this meeting of the Plain Township Board of Trustees. If everybody will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before us, we have our agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members or department heads at this time?
Mr. Chairman, under concerns of trustees, I would like to add strengthening start.
Okay. Are there any other additions, deletions, or corrections? Okay, the agenda will stand as amended. Before I get to our first article of business, which is simply our election of officers, because it is beginning of year, we got a little bit of formal organization we got to go through. I want to welcome our respected guests that are here with us tonight, because we have a number of individuals from the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 699. So we'll be hearing from them here in a couple minutes. First item on the agenda is election of officers. The first one is an election for president of the board for 2018. And I am going to make a motion to nominate Mr. John Sabo as president of the board.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. And then the second item here is election of officers for the position of vice president.
I will move that we nominate and elect Al Lino, Vice President of Plain Township Board of Trustees.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Say yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Yes. With that being said, I'm going to turn this over for Mr.
All right.
Sabo to run with, and we'll swap seats.
Yeah, we'll swap seats next meeting so we can move along. You'll just be patient with us. These are absolute points of business that are a necessity the first meeting of every year. So,
I'm sorry, I just want to say that Trustee Hall is an outstanding job he does when he runs and conducts meetings, and now you take a little break, but you've done an amazing job as president. So.
I would agree with that. We talked about that last year, and he decided to go one more year as president, so I could kind of find out a little bit more about what's going on. So I won't be quite as in tune as he is until I get a little experience behind me. So just have a little patience with us. So the next one is beginning of the year resolution number 3, which deals with Robert's Rules of Order, and I will move to pass this resolution.
Second,
A discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
yes.
Beginning of year resolution number 4 deals with when we will meet in 2018. Those dates are very specific there, and I will move for this resolution.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of year resolution number 5 deals with the rehiring of all full-time and part-time employees that they are retained until the first meeting in 2019.
I will so move.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
I will move on beginning of the year resolution number 6 that deals with the continuation of all work rules that are in effect and policies that were effective December 31st, 2017, unless otherwise amended.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 7 that deals with the declaration of holidays for the employees and the language that's included to cover the collective bargaining agreements. All that is within this resolution.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Let me point out one thing, this is just a little bit different than we have done in the past. In this particular case, I noticed, actually, when I was reading these, that probably the correct way to do this would be to, since we don't have a meeting that we can actually dedicate January 1st, 2019, I thought it would be easier to do that now and declare it now, and then that way we will continue to put that holiday at the end, which means that it's valid then for the first part of the year, so we don't have to go back and redo it.
Smart move.
Okay? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 8 deals with mutual aid. Mutual aid for fire departments, EMS service, or the incident management assist team.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 9 deals with the coordination of fire and law enforcement agencies. It's pretty lengthy, I don't want to have to read it. I will move on beginning of the year resolution number 9.
So moved. Or you move second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 10 deals with the appointment of the board members in the Volunteer Firefighters Dependents Fund Board. I will move on beginning of the year resolution number 10.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 11 deals with the appointment of Lisa Campbell as the official designee of the Plain Township Board of Trustees for Public Records Training.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 12 deals with the appointment for Stark Council of Government. So we have to decide who we're going to appoint as the representative.
I've been the SCOG, I mean, if you guys want me to, I've been the SCOG representative in the current executive committee member.
I think that would be appropriate then.
You've done really well.
Keep it.
All right, so we will appoint Scott Hawes as representative to the Stark Council of Governments, and to appoint,
Which would be-
I'll be okay with that,
John Sabo.
appoint John Sabo as alternate representative for 2018.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year, number 13 deals with the request for an advancement on taxes. I will move on beginning of the year resolution number 13.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 14 deals with our involvement in the Stark County Hazardous Materials Response Team. It is lengthy, it basically deals with the members of our fire department being assigned to this for an automatic deployment for the regional county team. I would move on beginning of the year resolution number 14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 15 deals with the set zoning fees to waive the applicable zoning fees for governmental agencies or other political subdivisions.
I'll second it.
Actually, I don't think we moved
Then I
that.
will move on it.
All right,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year, resolution number 16 deals with the Board of Trustees authorizing payment for costs for refreshments provided to those attending township association, zoning inspectors, fire chiefs, or other intergovernmental meetings that are hosted by Plain Township in the year 2018.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year, resolution number 17 deals with the membership in Gov Deals for any of our resources that we deem to be unneeded, obsolete, that we have the ability to put those on the internet auction. And I will move on beginning of the year number 17.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Just
Roll.
to
Go ahead.
clarify, this has been an immensely valuable
Well, yeah.
resource instead of having to pay significant sums out to local papers just to advertise it, which essentially nets out against whatever comes in, so.
And other government agencies look on that site, and
We've actually got some good premiums
citizens
on it.
have also looked up, utilize that site now, so we've got some really good buybacks on that.
Good. Any other discussion? Call a roll, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
That can, we have one more? Two more. Resolution, beginning of the year, resolution number 18 deals with the agreement with Computech to provide server monitor maintenance.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Now we are on the last one. Beginning of the year, resolution number 19 is to enter into an agreement with Planet Technologies for a one-year agreement for Office 365.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes beginning of the year resolutions. We don't have a sheriff's report, do we?
Next one.
Okay, so let's move right into new business, and I will turn that over to Trustee Hawes.
All right, well,
I have a question of the sheriff's.
well, we can do that during public speak.
Okay.
During public speaks.
Sorry.
Well, sorry about that.
Yeah.
With respect to new business, to me, this is about the most important thing of this meeting here tonight, and I've been excited since I had the conversation back on November 11th at our Salute to Veterans event with Plain Township's own resident, Mr. Larry Emery. Tonight, through a couple months, just some conversation and back and forth, we're going to establish ourselves, hopefully, as a Purple Heart township. This is something that I think speaks volumes to, one, the men and the women that we have in our community. When you take a look at the number of veterans in Stark County, I think that number is a little over 29. It's not quite 30,000, of which it's a little over 4,000 that are in Plain Township, so about 12 to 15% of the county's population is in Plain Township. Our collective team, along with some collaboration in the communities, grown leaps and bounds in what we've done to honor and recognize the service and sacrifice of our veterans over the last couple of years. But I think this isn't, icing on the cake. This is really setting the bar for our community. So what I'm going to do is we'll turn it over to Larry Emery, Plain Township's own Purple Heart recipient. He's a recipient or spokesperson for Chapter 699. So Larry, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here and an honor.
and it's an opportunity to give Plain Township another title, Purple Heart Township, and I think that's a very good thing. And just to tell a little bit about what we're all about, throughout the year at times like this, we set aside times to pause and reflect, to recall and recognize, and to honor and celebrate the service and the sacrifices of those who shoulder the immense responsibility of defending our freedom. Throughout these gatherings, we also rededicate ourselves to fulfilling Abraham Lincoln's charge to all Americans to care for those who have borne the battle for their selves and for their families. Today, less than 1% of our population bears the responsibility of our national defense. And today, just over 7% today have worn our nation's uniform. Our chapter of the Purple Heart is dedicated to serving all veterans, generations with commitment and respect equal to their service and their sacrifice. And this is a noble mission, and we consider it our sacred duty. As we work with our veterans to try to mend bodies and spirits, guide our veterans through life-saving benefits, and we try to provide an honored final resting place, let us all take pride in our willingness to fulfill our obligation for services already rendered, down payment already made, and willingness already sacrificed by veterans to whom we owe so much. Our gratitude should be expressed for these veterans every single day of the year and not just on certain holidays. In that way, the veterans and their families will never have to question the readiness of this great country to meet their needs and to live productive lives with respect and dignity. There will never be enough that we can do for those who have given so much for the rest of us. We must do this right, and we must do this well. For those generations of Americans who deserve to have their constitutions protected and their freedoms preserved. On this day, the Purple Heart Chapter 699 honors the service and sacrifice of the men and women of Plain Township who have served in various duty stations around the globe and have done so with unwavering commitment to protect all that we hold dear. So on behalf of Plain Township, Chapter 699 and Americans everywhere, it's our privilege today and every day to help the entire nation to demonstrate its debt of gratitude to all those who have so willingly fulfilled citizenship's highest calling. May Almighty God bless everyone who has served, is serving now, and who will continue to serve our great nation in whatever capacity in the future. Remember, all gave some, but some gave all. Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
So, Larry, do you wish to introduce just the other gentlemen that are
I do.
with you for the sake of
That would be great.
public record and
Okay.
proper recognition?
I'd like to introduce Hugh Washer. I'd like to introduce Ron Bradham, Don Lloyd, and Rick Stoltz. These are all members of our chapter. These people have all served in Vietnam. They're all wounded veterans, and they have all received Purple Heart.
Larry, we're going to come around.
Okay.
Proclamation here by our board that we want to present you guys with. I would like to start here. Down here. Our trustees proclamation says here, for the sake of public record, Plain Township, Stark County, Ohio, recognizing Purple Heart Day. Whereas the Order of the Purple Heart of Military Merit established by General George Washington during the Revolutionary War, is the oldest military decoration for military merit in the world. And whereas the Purple Heart Medal is presented in the name of the President of the United States to members of the military wounded in combat with an instrument of war by enemy forces, and subsequently to the next of kin of members of the military killed in combat. And whereas the Military Order of the Purple Heart was formed in 1932 and chartered by Congress in 1958, is composed of military men and women who received the Purple Heart Medal, and is the only congressionally commissioned organization comprised strictly of the United States combat veterans. And whereas, in recognition of the estimated 1.8 million veterans who have been bestowed this prestigious medal, given in the service of valor, the trustees of Plain Township desire to join the many other cities and villages in the nation to become a Purple Heart Township. And whereas the Plain Township trustees are honored to declare August 7th of every year to be the Purple Heart Day as a tribute to honor the service and sacrifices of our veterans, and especially the bravery of the extraordinary men and women who have earned a Purple Heart Medal while serving this country. And now, therefore, Scott M. Hawes, Albert P. Lino, and John A. Sabo, by virtue of the authority vested in us as trustees of Plain Township, Stark County, Ohio, do hereby recognize Purple Heart Day on the 7th day of August, and hereby express the deepest gratitude to those who have faithfully served in defense of our freedoms, and gratefully acknowledge their service, bravery, and unwavering commitment to our country.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to present you with a plaque. It says, "The Military Order of Purple Heart Special Recognition Award is bestowed with pride to Plain Township, Ohio, for your dedication and support, honoring America's combat wounded veterans and becoming a Purple Heart Township. Presented by members of the Chapter 699 Military Order of the Purple Heart, USA."
Thank you, gentlemen.
And we have a Purple Heart flag that I'd like to present, that you can fly in the town hall, you can fly it outside, whatever. And also, we have some combat wounded veterans parking signs for you. These are very nice, and we'd like to present that as well. And thank you again so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Well, gentlemen, I know we've spoken quite a bit leading up to this, but I can't stress enough how meaningful this is to our community. Coming from a military family where you got part of the family that's a Gold Star family, to an uncle who was wounded in Korea, who's been in a wheelchair ever since I've been a kid. Your service and your sacrifice has my utmost gratitude and indebtedness. So Plain Township's extremely proud of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can we get the pictures of the chapter with all the elected
Sure.
officials?
Yeah.
Tom,
We want
Tom,
to move this just
Actually, hold those so we can see those too. Those
Well,
are
we
great.
will, but
We just need to move it.
do we want, gentlemen, would you like these flanking right along the sides? to
Yeah,
move-
that'd be
move
great.
them in Just a little bit.
Good.
That'd be great.
Grabbing, okay.
That's on the fire. Get y'all in there.
Okay.
Okay, everybody on 3. 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
I'm gonna get another one close up.
We got Commissioner Smith over here still.
2, 3. All right, very good, gentlemen.
We'll make sure we get those to you.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Did you get the rest of the signs? Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Give them a hand.
Oh, I know.
You know, whatever would be the correct protocol.
Yeah. Sure, we got their information.
Scared me when
Yeah, it's right over here.
Okay, oh, nice. Very nice.
Okay, continuing on, we will move to the fiscal officer's report. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in an amount of $122,166.80.
So moved.
Second. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So
I'll
moved.
second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the financial report for the month of December. If anyone has questions, I'm available after the meeting. Fiscal Officer number 5 is a request for resolution to enter into the attached agreement with Finley Davies to complete the actuarial evaluation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 9.833 and to authorize payment from Fund 01A28E not to exceed an amount of $2,500.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 6 is a liquor license transfer from Guardian Eyes LLC to Toddy B's LLC located at 2700 Easton Street Northeast.
As far as Bill, is there,
Yeah.
this is essentially one, it's the same individual with two different companies, and it's going from one company to the other. It's really not a change of ownership or anything, so.
I think the consensus is we'll move forward with this.
Okay. Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for resolution to approve sick pay bonus as stated in the negotiated contract for the members of the Plain Township Firefighters Association as follows.
I will move on. Fiscal Officer number 7.
Second it.
Discussion, this is all based on the collective bargaining agreement. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 9 is a request for resolution to authorize the fiscal officer to transfer funds as needed between meetings for expenses and include the transfers in a resolution at the following meeting.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the fiscal officer report.
Okay, that takes us to the part of the agenda for the administrator. Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. I have before the board a resolution to approve and authorize payment to Worsler Brothers Landscaping for the December composting in the amount of $2,175 from Fund 01A26L.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2, I'm submitting for the board's review our 2018 SMART goals that are combined goals with myself and all of the department heads. They're collaborative goals this year. Instead of each department submitting separate goals, we have submitted 5 goals for the board to review. They're much larger goals, feeling that we could really do some good here at the township. If you have any questions, you can call myself or any of the department heads, and we are already getting a start on most of them. As you'll see, they range from holding training classes with the BWC, trying to decrease our reportable days away from work, which in the end saves the township money, to organizing and developing a hazardous risk assessment planning process for the township, which would lead to identify natural events or hazards that the township needs to prepare for. So those are just a few of those. Any questions, again, you can ask any of us.
I commend you guys on this opportunity, because I can tell you since I come on board as trustee, this SMART goals was always a big thing of mine. I know at first everybody's like, oh, what's he looking to do here? But I mean, we've made good progress as we've done them individually, so to see it come together even for larger goals to help move us further down the field and make us more effective, more efficient. This definitely be commended, because I know there's other areas where they don't necessarily even welcome this. So the fact that we've got cross collaboration with the department heads, been able to build some level of consensus there and do something that's really touching in everybody's operations.
I've also done training with the executive assistants, and they will be submitting some SMART goals to the department heads also. So it is something that is going from the top down, which is great.
I would agree. Goal setting is something that's critical in any organization, and in this particular case, we started out, I think 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago?
It's been about 4 years.
Has it really?
Yeah.
But we really stepped it up.
Yeah, we stepped it up because I know there was kind of a reluctance as to what all that was going to entail, but I think once we got on board with it and once we realized that, we were meeting a lot of those goals, and, there was a certain amount of satisfaction, and then there was this realization that, wow, maybe some of these things we have the same goals for, how can we collaborate to pull it off? And I think this is a good idea that you actually did this as a collaboration, because in the end, it's win-win for everybody. And we just need now as a board to kind of take a look at this and see then what our responsibilities are to help you guys fulfill these goals. So I appreciate all the work you guys have done on that. And I know it's a little scary when you're setting goals, but I think it gives us some direction as well.
And that's the end of the administrator report.
Thank you, and we will move on to the Fire Department Chief Schallenberg.
Item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the purchase and payment of gasoline, oil, diesel, fuel from McIntosh Oil not to exceed $20,000 to be taken from Fund 10A09E.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And on item number 2, before I read that, the attachment's not there with the quote for this, so I do have it available too, and I'm just gonna have not to exceed $3,000 there. So the attachment did not make it into the PowerPoint here. So, resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the payment to Altech Online Employee Scheduling and Workforce Management System for subscription period of from 2/1/18 to 1/31/18, to be taken from Fund 28A09, not to exceed $3,000.
I will so move.
I'll second for discussion.
Go ahead.
No, Chuck, can you maybe just kind of give us the
Yeah.
Reader's Digest version of this?
Yeah, this system allows us to schedule all the employees. It's a web-based program, so we can just live all the time, so employees can have access to their schedules and also other things that happen throughout the day, for events. We have that in there, scheduling people. And then also, it allows us to go more paperless because we can have our forms in there for truck checks, drug checks, all the stuff that we do on a daily basis. They'll all be web-based and be able to be accessed from an iPad, phone, or desktop. So Captain Haynes, Deputy Chief Reed, we did a lot of beta testing on this. Jackson Township, Greentown, there's multiple fire departments that use the same program. So I think it'll work out good for us and hopefully save us a little time once we get this thing, under control and everybody knows how to use it good, so.
I was gonna say, I know I had the opportunity, was it last Wednesday or Thursday, you and I met?
Yeah.
Let's talk over the strategic plan for the 3 outlook, which is part of it. And it really is a smooth, I mean, once you get used to the interface, it's pretty easy
Yeah.
to use. And again, the fact that we're reducing paper waste, and I think, Chuck, when we were talking, just whether it's postings and notifications or anything like that, it's multiple locations. Here we have it in a centralized location, it's uniform, it's consistent, and not having to go out to these multiple areas just to manage it. So, you gotta believe from an efficiencies aspect. And you guys have been piloting this for 2 months?
It was, yeah, October,
Yeah.
about 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, 3 months.
So, we've got, the guidance I got is they're pretty
It's,
cool as well.
My cousin is a Columbus firefighter, and like last year, we were on vacation. And he goes online, he's looking up his schedule, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, this is all computer-based. He said, I can see where I'm at, personal days, all kinds of stuff. So, when Chuck told me about that, it's like, I know it is successful in other places. So.
Gets us into the current
Yes.
expectations.
Good. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 3 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize reimbursement for healthcare membership for Eric KD in the amount not to exceed $400 according to provision 37 of the collective bargaining agreement from account 10A15.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And then item number 4 is our annual report, excuse me, and I apologize, they've got it scanned in sideways.
Yeah.
I do have a hard copy available.
It's a landscape version.
Yeah, so I obviously seen it tonight and it's scanned inside. It's a little hard to maybe read that unless you got it on your iPad, you can turn directions there, so.
Yeah, but it'll keep changing if you do.
Yeah.
So essentially,
We've done pretty much what we did last year with the annual report, just expanding on some of the areas, things that we did that were new or different. Then the end of it being basically a call summary, so.
essentially, based upon the numbers from year over year, we're looking at about an 8% increase. So really, those bodies that we've added on and the ones that we're going to have to add to backfill tying in as well to some type of future part-time.
Right.
It's really gonna drive some of that stuff that's within your strategic plan for the next 3 years. Because if we're continuing to see that, which I gotta believe our numbers are gonna continue to go up just due to the increased build out within Plain, additional expansion on Wicker Creek, additional build out at Lexington Farms. Ground's supposed to be moving up at Edgewood this year. And then you still have the backside of Bobolink, is that Pine Crest Meadows, I think? I mean,
That's right.
yeah, there's significant real estate, so those roof lines are gonna equate the bodies, and we know that a certain percentage is gonna end up at some point, so.
So I appreciate if there's any other questions, if you want to, see the hard copy, the landscape versus the other there, that might make it easier too. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Chuck. We'll move on to road, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is a resolution authorizing purchase of gasoline, oil, and diesel not to exceed $20,000.
So moved.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution to hire Randy Bacone as a part-time seasonal employee on an on-call as-needed basis to be retroactive with a start date of December 26th and ending employment on April 30th, 2018 at a rate of $20 per hour with no benefits, all pending pre-employment drug and alcohol screening.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. I think we would all agree this started out to be maybe just like a little trial, and we quickly realized it turned into something that was almost a necessity. Is that a fair way to
We're
describe
at that
that?
point, this weekend could be a good
Yes.
litmus test for
Yeah.
that. So.
Absolutely.
If you need to, you can always call the board out.
Al already said he's coming out to plow snow. So.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
That's what I'm at.
Might have enough
Just let me know, I'll just bring my
Might have
camera.
enough for everybody.
Yeah.
No driveways.
I'm like GoPro, just kind of. What the discussion is about, we've taken some of our retirees from the road department, actually hired them on a part-time basis to fill in. And when we discovered that we had pretty dynamic first snow, they worked out real well. And we had a couple glitches that we had to work out, and I think we got all those covered, so all the legalities and everything, and we're comfortable with this. And the good news was the union bought into it. And I think they are totally satisfied with it as well. So, any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
And item number 3 is the 2017 annual. You can see we continue to pave a lot of roads, 17.75 miles of road got paved this past year. That's going on 3 years consecutively, right around that number. We're hoping to do it again in 2018, keep that, get our roads in better shape.
Just got to quit snowing and have an ice on the street.
Yeah, that's the winter part of our
Yeah. Just get through all of this. That concludes road.
Sabo, I want to just thank Lisa for leading us on the SMART goals thing. She kept us in a straight and narrow and in timeline, so if it wasn't for her, I don't know if they would have got done as quickly as they did. Thank you.
I would agree with that. Also, as always, make sure you pass it along from the board. We appreciate the road department's passion in getting out there and making sure that the streets are clear.
Well, it's definitely evident when you drive through some other communities. Not all of them, but there's somewhere it's
Absolutely.
distinctively different.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Joe. Let's move on to zoning, Mr. Ferrara.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item on the agenda is the annual report. You'll notice that the reports are from iWorks. This is the first year that we've had, the first full year we've had iWorks. So we've been able to incorporate the whole year into this report. There are still some other reports we're working on to try and clarify a little bit more. But I think this covers the highlights of the zoning department for the year.
Again, good work, because
Yes.
obviously through, I mean, John, even when you were here as chief, how you know some of the headaches we've had, the dynamics in that office and the productivity have exponentially changed for the positive, not only for the sake of internal operations, but for the sake of our external customers that we serve.
Thank you, sir.
Instead of saying, hey, we've got, why are the number of, abatements going down? That's a good thing, because of the preemptive work that's being done. Obviously, we don't want to have tons on there, because it ties up time and financial resources that delays our ability to do other things. So commend the entire team for the precision and effectiveness that you operate with.
Thanks, sir. Pass it on.
Number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution to declare item A as a nuisance abatement.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Yes.
And that'll be all for zoning.
Thanks, Tom. Good job. Bob, we'll move to Parks. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is our annual report for the parks. I'll entertain any questions or concerns you have.
What are we going to do to step it up and clean this up a little bit light?
Yeah.
I feel like it was light. I guess my response to that would be is I'm pacing myself.
No, in all seriousness, the amount of work that we had done over the last year within parks, I mean, not only with those guys, but the collaboration and the support, again, I mean, with what's evolved and developed over at Veterans Park to all the significant updates, and capital investments we've made down at Diamond to the playground, really over at Alpine, all of it done without a parks like it's done through, the users as well as grants. So, I mean, you'd be, yeah.
And the thought just hit me when we were talking about goals and how you guys have worked together to bring those. And I think the park project kind of started that off. When
If it didn't start it, it certainly highlighted it.
Exactly.
For sure.
When we started doing that, and then everybody kind of came on board in their own little area of discipline, and then we had meetings, and it just seemed like we pulled off a lot of things in a really short period of time that we thought, oh my, how is this ever going to get done on time? And again, it just, I think those projects, so, it's just certainly beneficial for all of us.
Great.
Okay.
Golf net's coming up.
Golf nets have been ordered. As soon as they get in, they'll be up.
Is our
No
commissioner,
pun intended.
your golfer commissioner's coming up?
Yeah.
We got nets going up at our park, the golf balls in them.
I promise that is on its way, literally on its way. Okay. Item number 2 is simply a resolution for the purchase and installation of blinds at the Diamond Community Park in the mezzanine area from Fund 01B 05E in an amount of $2,800.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
So, as we continue to update the facilities, as we've talked about here just briefly in the annual report, what we noticed is we've increased safety with that golf netting up and around and all the way around the ceiling. It's protecting not only the facility but patrons from errant balls flying, whether it be a lacrosse ball, a soccer ball, football, whatever the case may be. One of the unintended consequences of that safety is that the netting being tighter hold is tougher to see through to the field, which is causing a clog in the walkway area behind the goal. So these blinds will cut down on some of that glare from behind and allow people to see clear through to the field, which doesn't hurt from a customer service standpoint, but also from a safety point of clearing out that walkway area between front door and restroom and then the other stairwell up.
I can't believe that's gonna help cut down on some of that heat, because with no blinds there, that's like a convection of it.
That's what I said.
That's
That's exactly what I said when, you know, because that's right in line with that sun coming down and directing that right in there, so.
Afternoons in the summer are
I
quite
don't
warm.
think it's just a matter of the glare. I think, you know, from an efficiency standpoint, I think it's going to help.
We're certainly hopeful of all of that, yeah, but I think it'll serve multi-purposes. And they're vinyl blinds, they're industrial blinds, they're easy to clean. And because so many of our customers have asked us to address it, I think it'll be pretty easy with our supervisors on duty to continue to keep them in good working order.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you, that concludes parks.
Thanks, Mr. Steinberg, and that brings us to communications. And turn that over to Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. I have 2 items under communications tonight. The first is to Trustee Scott Hawes reading, "Thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak to Troop 42 on Thursday night. The Scouts really enjoyed the tour of the township. Angie Kirkman, Troop 42, and all the Scouts signed in their best penmanship, which is nice."
Hey,
That was not true.
oh, was it? 42.
I actually brought up when it was here that we had an Eagle Scout on the board. Honestly, that's probably one of the funnest and most rewarding parts of all the stuff we get to deal with outside of resolving problems. Just, you know, the kid's attention span was short, let's face it, but I'll tell you what, there was a kid that I think did his homework, because he was asking some questions you would not expect from somebody that age. That's awesome. So,
Item number 2 on the agenda is notice from the Plain Township Historical Society. It's their January newsletter. If you look at the last page, it gives the dates and topics for the entire year. The first being January 15th. Judith Pocock is speaking about the Plain Township pioneers and their life. So some very good topics there. And that ends communications.
So that brings us to the part of the agenda for public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board or has any questions, please give your name and address, and then you can, Mr. Brandman?
Yes, you want me at the podium?
No, if you want to just, you can come to the
Wherever
podium.
you're comfortable.
If you're comfortable there, we're comfortable with you.
All right. Bob Brenneman, 4133 Plains Center, Northeast. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces. I left my hat on because you wouldn't recognize me. It's been a while since I've been here. But anyhow, I do want to thank the road department. My wife and I had to go out yesterday morning around 11 o'clock, and that southern end of Plains Center is just always so nice. When you look in the mirror and look further, it's not so nice, okay? But, all right, but the reason why I'm here, the point is not so nice. I got new neighbors in this past spring, and everything was okay this summer. And then the later fall, well, then the rock music started on Saturday nights again, And so it's like, I'm sure everybody's heard, if you're in traffic somewhere and you hear a car with one of the, I call them boom boxes, you know where it's coming from. It's just, this heavy, deep bass, or if somebody drives past your house in a car that's got going on there, except that disappears where this doesn't. So, my point is, okay, if it comes to the point, I really don't want to, do that. Call the police at 9 o'clock, and it continues at 10, 11, 12, what's the proper way to do this again, nothing's changed in the township noise ordinance, am I correct on that?
Correct.
That's based upon
Yeah.
distance / decibel.
And they would determine that.
Yeah,
So-
the
You would have to be
property-
contacted.
Yeah.
You can always contact us anonymous. You don't have to necessarily, you can say that I just want to remain anonymous, but it's a loud music complaint, and we can send some cars out and make contact, and if we hear it, then we can cite them.
Yeah, it's at that end, where I get it,
Sure.
it's people, some, they were out to my people are out in my house, you know, and Geovese was out, and I think Lisa was out too, you know, before. And so, okay, we'll just, but I know it was like a formal, I had an officer come over and go out of
We're
complaint.
still,
You don't, but if you want to kind of stay out of it and don't want them to know, you don't necessarily have
I'm
to.
hoping that somehow this, you know,
Yeah.
quiets down.
do we, this is probably a question directed towards Bob and Tom here simultaneously, maybe even Bill. We're obviously talking about the Meadow Lake Golf Course.
Different, same place, like
But
the
it's
fourth
got-
different
it's
name
got
the
a
last
different
4
name on
years.
the side. Is
It was
this-
Raptors,
do we know,
it was
has this
EB's
been-
pub and party place, it went back to Raptors, now it's the
Then it was EB's, and then is it,
Raptors, now it's a tugboat pub.
but is it still, is it somebody that it's being leased out to? Do we know, do we know that? Or is it,
I know.
so it's,
I can check on it.
Still very long.
Phil's been the one.
I know the owner of the tugboat,
Is that
Munson.
Phil?
Munson.
I'm hoping, you know, they just tone the bass down some, you know, okay, you got people out there 11:30 at night yelling and carrying on, you know.
Yeah, usually we would send our detective or someone maybe just to give a little, you know, hey, because that's a new owner now, with the fourth, fifth owner there. And I know that owner's a very reasonable person to talk to, so it could just be a matter of one of us paying a little business saying, hey, we've got a complaint, this is what happens, this.
I thought about calling too, but I was advised, you know, some time ago, just not to do that, you know. it's, you know,
He's a very
legal
reasonable
aspects.
person to talk to, so he would understand if we give him a little visit.
It was good all summer, and then for some
Is it
reason it
starting now?
started.
Is it in the winter time now? Or are you talking about,
Pardon me?
is the noise now in the winter you're hearing?
Yeah, Saturday nights, yeah, just, it's that heavy bass, you know.
Yeah, that thump.
It just travels, you know, and, yeah. So, and there's also one more, okay, so that, I guess we're about all that can be discussed.
Well, in order to just, I mean, I think to bring it fairly to closure is one, unfortunately, because the sheriff's office is who we contract with for our policing and enforcement, whether it's state law or it's local home rule resolution, it does have to go through them. I can tell you, I'll even make a visit over there this weekend, just to see if I can.
I sure do appreciate that, you know, just,
It may not be Friday night when we're crossing paths for dinner at the bistro or something.
yeah, I wasn't gonna I didn't, no business when there's pleasure, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
well, business is here.
I'll see if I can, Saturday, I'll have some time, see if there may be.
Yeah, I get at the end, I understand the way the building's set up over there, that it's that end, you know, and, but, you know, things do carry, you know. You know, it's probably 400 or 500 feet away there, you know, and just,
Well, we had trouble with the bass sound. Church there.
The church, yeah.
That bass sound carries.
Well, the church had a combination of some
Yeah,
bad,
they-
plus turned it down, if I recall.
Yes.
I think that was just even prior to coming up, I may have just come
I
up.
think it had just come on when we got that one kind of wrapped up.
That one got so bad that our deputies had to go there and actually they had in violation of the noise ordinance because it was that bad. Then eventually, they finally tapered down.
I don't
I
know
don't think you'll have
what's
trouble.
changed, it was good all summer and most of the fall. I don't know what,
It just
This summer
recently.
will be
Yeah,
pretty
I don't think it's been that, under that ownership very long.
No, I said
So
just.
they may be still trying to find their way as to, you know, what's gonna be beneficial to them. But if it did just start and it truly is a nuisance, it's better to get it caught early.
well, that's why I'm here, you know, it's been, you know, going on for a month and a half now or something, and, you know, it's just, you know, I shouldn't have to turn the house fan on to, you know, block some of that, you know. Also, one more, okay, I just have a question, that was discussed in the last meeting here again this December about the yard, Stark County Regional, you know, yard waste. I did try to find, there was a township where my parents used to rest their souls, and they have their own township recycling for their own residents. And I tried to find out some information, but I haven't done so much, but I want to cover, you know, I'll try to find out something. I'm sure that you probably know, you know, there's options out there, but the concern that I have is that if they close down certain recycle areas, yard waste areas. And I've been up here, and sure, some people in here have been, when that gets really busy up here, you know. Of course, there are occasions where you get, you know, somebody's coming in and you know they're a contractor. I don't know if that's allowed or what, but that's what I'm afraid of, is that they do, I didn't realize there were so many sites that cover and start
Couple
counting,
things.
you know. And, I mean, this is ideal up here. I don't, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And yeah, it's convenient. It's really nice, you know. I used to, years ago, before I knew this was here, I used to pile this stuff up along my driveway and give a guy $100 to chip up the branches and everything. But now, you know, hey, get a storm or something, I put it in my little trailer and bring it up here, you know. But did they just say when that they're gonna maybe decide on that?
Well, there's gonna be, we're gonna start seeing later action in 2018 and especially 19. I will say, for what it's worth, I mean, the Stark Joint Solid Waste District has been preemptive in communication to us dating back at least a year prior to this, saying, hey, we're starting to do some homework, we're gonna assess this, it may have an impact, there's some market factors that I think even the repository had published. What it may potentially mean to Plain is we have 2 locations. We have Old Station 4 down here, which is under surveillance, and to your point of worrying about commercial contractors dumping, we've caught, the word's out because we've caught them, and thanks, courtesy of our sheriff's deputies, we've brought them back, and they've had to remove that waste from there. So the shenanigans of thinking they're getting away with something, you know, while they're making money off somebody.
Yeah.
We've had a couple. We haven't really had any recent issues, and I know between Joe and Rob's guys staffing, it, you know, especially when the traffic's heavy in the fall, there's an additional layer of monitoring. The other locations over off of 38th, Wursler Brothers. Based upon initial feedback that's been provided, that may likely be the one of 2 locations in Plain that ultimately disappear. So, you know, that would present a inconvenience to our residents on the south/west part of the township. However, looking at, you know, Jackson Township has a facility over there, and they're committed to keeping something. That would probably be the next closest location. I know through our Stark County Township Association, we're actually going to have the Joint Solid Waste District hosting, I think it's our February or March meeting, and outside of them talking to how that's going to play out further and impact the communities. The sponsor that evening, Craig Snee, who owns the, why can't I think of the name of the, Earth and Wood. He's going to be there as well to be able to talk through some of the market dynamics. So we're going to communicate that, but long term, our township's always operated on limited hours over there, simply because of how it's been funded through the Joint Solid Waste District, combined with the fact that, you know, our road levies and our parks levies don't have the funding, nor does the general fund have a sustainable revenue stream to be able to say, hey, we're going to keep it open 7 days a week, or hey, we're going to make sure that second location stays
Well, you might incur extra costs too by having to have the operator for the front end loader there more often than, you know. But I had 2 calls into the township manager and their parks department. I remember he said that he called back. But
from our?
From back, no, back in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Pennsylvania. Just curious, because I know they got to the point where they actually had to have somebody at the gate and they would monitor people coming in. Now, how they checked them, whether it was license plate, license, or I don't know if they handed out actually passes to township residents, you know, that,
I wonder,
I don't know.
I mean, the closest thing I've seen that's done like that around here is out in Paris Township. They have the dump where I think it's once a month, you come rolling in with whatever you have. You have to provide your ID.
No,
And it's not just driver's license. I mean, they're able to tie it back to physical township-based
yeah, that wouldn't be.
property, and that's given our size, would be extremely difficult.
But this isn't only for township.
No, that's,
No, this is
This
for
is
all
county.
yeah, see, that, right now, it's fairly easy, but, you know, because solid joint is taking care of that. But if we got to the point where we had to look at, okay, we want to do something just for our residents, we would absolutely have to monitor that,
Yeah.
because there are so many people around us who are accustomed traveling somewhere to say, I'm gonna stop by there and drop off some stuff, and it's always busy, so, and
Yeah, this place, this is busy down here.
well, we know it's probably one of the most used services by a bigger group of citizens in Plain Township. You know,
volume-wise,
That location is highest in volume.
Highest in
Yes,
volume every year.
yeah,
Yeah, and even just access getting at where you have to get rid of your waste compared to, let's say, over Worcesters, where you got to get back in there and, use that a couple of times. But, no, I just wanted to bring that up and we'll see.
thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, we're good, thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Smith, thank you for being patient and sitting through our meeting. I told you this morning, I thought maybe it'll be short, but I did the best I could. Have anything you want to say while you're here?
Just here to visit, and I, kind of tickled that this evening, picked this evening, it was good, because, it wasn't because of your reorg either. But the Purple Heart presentation, becoming a Purple Heart Township, that is why it's worth coming to the different meetings. Last night I was at Wilmot, and tonight I'm here, and just going and getting around and just seeing the different things. But this was great. This was absolutely over the top. You do a great job with that, with the memorial and everything. So congratulations, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me? I mean, I can.
Actually, I just want to publicly acknowledge on the record, thank you for your help recently with some building department activity regarding a couple of properties that were very questionable. We're getting the progress that
Good.
we need, so thank you for your
Anytime you need,
assistance on that.
give me a holler.
Thank you. Anybody else? I know we have two people out there that I'm guessing you're here for a school project.
Yes, Joe Anderson, 3400 Blackburn Road. Don't have any problems or anything. I just thought it was cool how you guys did the Purple Heart ceremony. And we actually got to see that, you read it off. I could see like the emotion on your face. It could actually mean something to you, which I thought was cool. Plus, I went to a North Canton Township meeting. It was not as cool as this.
Make sure that's on the record.
That's a first.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. You want?
I'm Jackson Township.
That's okay.
That's okay. You still.
I basically want to say everything he said.
Well, thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah. Let me also tell you a little observation I had with you two that I was actually pleased to see, and I think there were a couple other people in this room that noticed it. You guys both got up and you shook all their hands as well.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I just want you to know we saw that, and that was a pretty mature thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? All right, with that then, we will move, let me see, are we finished there? Concerns of trustee strengthening start. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We all got the, what I will call the report or the white paper that was created, strengthening start through the Start Community Foundation and the civic group. So it took me a little bit to figure out who all these groups are and exactly what we're trying to accomplish. But what I would suggest, I don't want to get into some of the information that was given. It just would be easier, I think, if we, and we all got a copy of that. If we just read that and maybe did a work session. Maybe just, a half hour or so where I could kind of go through and hit some of the highlights based on who were the speakers that presented some of those highlights. I think the biggest thing is going to just kind of figure out who the players are, what their disciplines are. In the end result is, it's a really good start, at least I think so. That we're looking at nonprofits, private agencies. There were elected officials there from just about every level of government in our county. So I think just seeing them turn out, and this actually wasn't the only one they're going to hold. They targeted, I think that was the Canton Court District, and they're going to do, and actually I have the date that they are going to do in Alliance is going to be the 23rd of January. So they're going to hold another one that will be done on that side. They don't have the one for the Maslin area scheduled yet, but we're not going to be the only one. So I think it is Ray Exemer that's coming to the Township Association meeting. I think that'll be a good start. I think collectively, I think if the township the Township Association kind of hears this collectively, there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and it can get a little bit overwhelming. But I think the end result is, when you look at that report, it speaks of smaller, poorer, what's the third one? Older. I should have known that. I qualified for 2 of those groups. So. But they're trying to take a look at that, looking into the future to bring back jobs, to keep young people here, to bring young people in, to jumpstart the economies, all types of things that they're looking at from a lot of different players. So, I think it's something that we probably should educate ourselves on, make sure that we have representatives at those, anything I missed, Commissioner?
I can tell you, this absolutely ties into
Exactly.
even the economic development session, breakout session I went over to, where we got that tool, and I mean, how they're talking about the touch points with the number of businesses. I mean, there's substantial productivity, volume increase opportunity there, and that's why identifying maybe our top 10 to 15 businesses here that we can partner with them, and I think that's why getting back to the table too, with Canton in northern Canton on economic development opportunities is important, and I know I've had individuals from both of those communities reaching out going, hey, can we get some dates just to have some initial sit down, and we'll discuss that more at a later point. So
yeah, they have all that information. It's interesting that, they realized that there were some businesses that they made contact with after the fact that these businesses had they put a lot of money back into their business for upgrades, and this group didn't know that, or if they would have known that that's what they were looking to do, they may have been able to get them some grants and some other funding to be able to do that. So, I think it's a matter of educating ourselves to the point where we're getting out there and we're knowing what's going on. Basically, it's in the white paper, most of the stuff that was in the presentation. I wrote down a couple things that isn't in this white paper because what they want to look at and integrate and collaborate on are demographics, education, employment, housing, resources, and transportation. And those are all issues that they believe that older, poorer, smaller can be changed to the positive sides of those. So I just think we need to kind of keep staying involved when we hear this is moving forward. All right, having said all that, let's now move to any concerns of the fiscal officer.
No concerns.
Approval of minutes, I will move on the approval of the minutes floor, December 19th, 2017.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Okay, and we do have a need for an executive session, so be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 7:15 for this regular meeting of January 9th, as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of 1B, employment of public employee or official, 1F, compensation of a public employee or official, and 4, preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.